Music Appreciation 101.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Love Music More. I am Scoobert Doobert, and I am joined with an awesome guest, Alex Delicata. Alex has worked on all your favorite artists, everybody from Beyoncé, Rihanna, Kygo OneRepublic, Meek Mill. Just listened to Sober by Hunter Hayes. That was dope. Super excited to talk to you. How are you doing, Alex?
I'm doing great, man. How are you?
I'm doing awesome. We're going to talk songwriting, my favorite subject.
Cool.
Low-key. So let's get into it. Let's have some fun.
Yeah, man. Let's go.
So you're based in LA?
Yes, I am. My studio here that we're sitting in is in Highland Park at a place called Lemon Tree Studios. It's sort of like just underneath the main strip of like Figueroa. If your LA people are checking this out, I love the location. Love this part of the city. So happy to be here. I've been here for a couple of years now.
I love that part of the city too. If I ever moved back from San Diego, that would be on the top five.
Are you from San Diego originally?
I am, man. I lived in LA for a minute and then found my way back down here when my then girlfriend, now wife, went to San Diego State. So then I made it back and kind of put down some roots down here. So
amazing.
It's cool.
It's nice down there, man. Great.
Yeah. It's a good vibe. So how did you get into songwriting? What was like the spark? What was the thing that was like, okay, I want to do this, or I want to like start writing seriously?
Well, it's a really good question actually, because I think probably until I was already sort of like doing it, I didn't even realize it was like a job that you could have. So like growing up, I was playing in bands and I was doing that kind of thing, and so we would write our own songs, and I probably started doing that when I was more seriously in high school and things like that. And before that, when I was starting out making music, like just learning how to play guitar and piano and stuff early on, I would of course like always sort of, even in classical piano lessons, like go off script and be like writing riffs and licks and like that kind of stuff and songs. So I've been like writing for a long time, but getting into it as a career was something that I think I just sort of happened into. Like I was, I'm from Chicago originally, but I went to school for jazz guitar in Miami. And so I spent most of my, the next like 10 years based out of Miami. And I started off just doing like gigs, sessions, whatever anybody would have me on as a guitar player. Yeah. And then that sort of like morphed its way into like helping producers write tracks. And like at that point, I didn't even really know that producing was like a thing, or like what that even really looked like, and all the different kinds that there were. I was just so stoked to be in the studio doing anything. So I was going in like just doing guitar sessions for people, which turned into like helping make tracks, and then helping co-write and doing all that stuff and doing the production. And so I just sort of fell into it. I can't remember if I'm answering your question or not, but
no,
that's sort of how it all started. Yeah.
No, that's super interesting. I want to latch on to the very beginning of kind of your musical journey. I'm always curious about like people that have like the writer spirit. I feel like there's a different thing between being like necessarily just like I play songs and I excel at like improvisation and like laying it down every single night, and then the types that like immediately when they start learning stuff, they start like being like, oh, but I could go over here, or I could improvise on this. Or like one of my problems when I was younger is I would learn the vocabulary. So I would learn like my favorite phrase or riff or something like that, and then build something weird off of it. My parents would be like, why aren't you just playing the damn song? Like just play it down. I'm like, no, I'm trying to like mess with it, like figure it out and get inside of it. Did you have a similar experience when you were like getting into music? Did you feel that writer energy, or did that grow?
I mean, I think there was just a curiosity for like what these sounds are. Like we just had a piano in our house. Like my parents, neither of them were musical, like, or did anything professionally. My dad used to kind of mess around on the piano sometimes. He had like, I think, a really strong ear and could sing and all of that. But I always just had a curiosity for like the piano just sitting in our house. And so like before I started taking lessons or anything like that, I would just kind of go over there and explore and kind of like play whatever. So I think it started off being like just this sort of curious exploration of sounds and things that sound cool. And then of course, like, that I think opens you up to listening to stuff more critically. And so you're like listening differently, even at a really young age. And you're just like, Oh man, that thing on that recording is fucking amazing. Can I cuss? Sorry, I don't know if I can.
Yeah, you can
cuss,
cuss.
but
You can cuss.
yeah, it's fucking amazing.
We'll throw the E on there.
Yeah,
now we're good for the rest of the episode.
Sorry, but it's amazing. And then you want to copy that, and so then my parents, of course, like wanted to like encourage me to do it, and they didn't really know any other way than to like do classical piano lessons or whatever it was.
Right.
So the structure I think came then, and that became like a complicated relationship in its own. Like I loved learning the technique and things like that, but I didn't function so well with like structure, and lessons became this sort of anxious thing about performance rather than about freely creating. And I think I always latched on to, well, this feels like more of an escape and it's more collaborative, So that part of it I think was always there for sure.
Yes. And I think it's funny when I don't know, the modern way of teaching classical, which already sounds like an oxymoron, is like so performance focused.
Yeah.
When like if you look at like Bach and stuff, these dudes improvise. Like Mozart improvised. Like they were players, and they would write kind of more like the way the jazz players do today. That's kind of how they would do. Like Bach would sit down at the organ and play his tune, but then like go off and do some exploration, then come back to the head. Like
I mean, totally,
it's built in.
Yeah,
but we don't really teach it that way anymore. And I think that I don't know, your instincts were right.
I mean, I don't know. Listen, I think it's a great thing for some people. Like there's obviously a balance, no matter how far you are along and what part of music or really anything you're doing, there's a balance between like your craft and your technical ability, and then like a totally different skill set, which is, creativity. I mean, this works in anything, not just like music. I mean, I think people who are great at decision making for large companies like can both understand how something works and then also, think outside the box and be able to be at like 10,000 feet a little bit sometimes too. And that's a hard thing to do inside your own brain as like a musician and a songwriter, of course, too, because you have to sort of play both of those roles sometimes in the same day, So
absolutely. And that moving between craft and creativity or intuition,
right?
That's a super interesting interplay, and one can like benefit the other. When you reach the end of your intuition, you can go back to your craft, and vice versa. Yeah.
Oh, I mean, totally. I think it's a good way to. I think when you're neglecting either of those things, and this is like a bit of a deeper thing,
that's
like
good.
then
that's
I
what
think
this pod's for.
Yeah, I think like then you sort of like get into trouble, and it's hard, you lose inspiration. You can lose like forward motion. So I think like always trying to be learning and improving things. At least I find that to be some of the most inspiring stuff, like just watching other people who I really respect work, or whatever it might be, even watching like tutorials like all the time. I'm always trying to like learn different ways to look at things and stuff like that so that I can then be free. But then also taking time away from music, going outside, doing stuff like that to just sort of like, be away from it enough and like be able to have some perspective on everything that you're doing is, I think, also equally important.
I like that a lot.
Yeah.
On that. So I'm a distance runner.
Yeah, there you go.
You're an endurance athlete as well, cycling, right?
Yes, exactly.
I think
I don't think anyone's ever called me an endurance athlete, but I like that. It makes me
well, I like that phraseology because it relates really well to music.
Yeah.
Music is an endurance athletic activity.
I mean, I think there's the thing about, I don't know if you feel this way, but like I have no fucking control over whether or not I'm going to get a good day or a bad day. Like writing, I mean, I've been in rooms with people who like just incredible rooms, and we've gotten terrible songs. I mean, it happens all the time, and I think there's something about just like showing up every day and just like being there and like making time to do it that's like the important metric to watch. And I feel that way about cycling too, or running. Any endurance sport is like some days you're gonna have good days and some days you're gonna have bad days. You just get out there and train. You just get out there and run and like just see what happens. You have no idea how you're gonna feel 15 minutes into the thing versus how you felt when you started. And that can totally be true with music too. I don't know. Yeah.
And in the same way, like I just did a 16 miler, and I haven't done that in like a year. I'm training for Chicago Marathon.
Nice. Great marathon. Marathon.
I'm super stoked. And it's actually a flat one, which is a first for me. But I got my ass kicked. I'm like, I'm a good runner. I've done multiple marathons, whatever. And I just absolutely hit the wall, and it broke me. And it was that feeling of like, what am I doing? Why did I pick such a stupid activity? And then yesterday ran a tempo. I'm like, I feel great.
Yeah, I mean,
Like, this rocks.
it really is just like music in so many ways, because it's like you can have all the hits in the world or successful songs or feel really accomplished one day, and then just have like 2 weeks of just what is happening, like making just the most garbage stuff, and you just have no control over it, so you just have to laugh at it and try to move on and keep writing, keep working,
and that's the stuff that people on the outside don't see. It's like Instagram and stuff, like you think that I tell mixing clients this often too, is like, hey man, don't compare my mix necessarily to that guy's master. It's like, this is the first mix, like we're working on it, we're getting there. It's like, it's not a one-to-one, apple-to-apple kind of comparison. Like,
I mean, I think I don't know about you, but like I probably bat like, I don't know, 1 out of every 30 or 40 songs is good. You know what I mean? Like, I think I'm really proud of. Like, granted, there's great ideas and stuff in there. And but the thing is, I think you sort of almost have to work through all the puzzles of like, and sort of fail at them in order to like get to anything good ever anyways. So there's learning in all of it, even if it feels like just soul crushing after a few days of like not doing well in the studio,
Totally.
Just remembering that it'll come, and trying. I try not to control it, There are certain things you can do, but I think the less you try to control it, the better off you are,
I'm curious about that process. So say you've been working on a few, it's not quite coming. How do you rinse and repeat? How do you like reapproach that moment and say, okay, no, let's attack this kind of idea in a different way, or let's switch up the chords, let's switch up the form. Like what's your process to like keep going? Like,
I mean,
get to that next level.
So I think this changes all the time and it's evolving all the time. So like, I guess that's a good question. I think sometimes even in the course of one session, you can do this mostly by not being too precious about any one idea, and like not, and it's like sort of this mentality of like not editing while you're creating. So it's just sort of like, you got to just get these ideas out. You got to like get stuff down before you can decide if it's good or bad anyway. So I don't know. I feel like, if you've been struggling, the best thing to do sometimes is, number one, take a break for 15 minutes. You know what I mean? Like, that's the main thing. Like, go outside, change the environment. I think if things aren't coming, like at least to get like a good framework that everyone's really excited about pretty quickly, it's almost always better to pivot and just switch gears, switch topics, start something completely new at a different tempo. I can't remember who I got this from. It was probably Mike Karen or something like that. But that like the second idea of the day is typically better than the first idea of the day, especially if you're working with new people. I feel like just getting the cobwebs off and getting comfortable with one another, and like sort of like getting the ball really rolling is its own thing, and it's really rare that the first idea is going to be the best one. I think once people have kind of gotten their nerves off and we can all laugh and be like, that was fucking terrible, then like you can break and then start something with like no pretense. Like oftentimes even if we're writing for a specific artist, for a specific brief, or the artist is in the room and they're very passionate about a concept, sometimes like the random second idea you have that is coming from totally left field is going to be the winner. So, or third idea. So that I think in like is one way that you can sort of like get through things, is sort of just kind of not be afraid to start something new. And then I think another thing that I do, this is like more of a big picture thing, is, try to find balanced time for like aimless creativity. I'm trying to do this more now, where there's no purpose to like what I'm doing. Like if it's like sit down at the guitar or the piano or something in my house even, and just sit for 30 or 40 minutes and play for no reason. Don't think about trying to record these ideas. Don't think about any of that. Like, and just throw it away. I mean, just getting like the creative juices, kind of like making it not attached to any sort of goal or any sort of anything else, just to like abstractly make things up, I think is a great way to get your mind out of these patterns that we get ourselves into, or sort of refresh yourself. So I don't know if any of those things are things that you've used yourself, or,
Yeah, no, I so resonate with that last bit. because I voice note on my phone, but a lot of them are not for the purpose of actually turning them into a song. A lot of them are just like the stupidest thing I could think of right there, just like a dumb lyric collection, or I'm sitting in traffic losing my mind, and I'm just going to record it just so that I have this weird thing. And every once in a while, one of those little nuggets turns into like a seed of a song. But it gets me in the process of, I'm in the shower, I'm writing something. And I always try to write at least one awful thing a day.
Yeah,
And
that's great. That's a great tool. People love
Yeah.
doing like that, sort of like, let's intentionally write a bad song for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yep.
mean? Like, again, it's a thing that I think takes the pressure off. Because I think, if you're a professional songwriter or producer or whatever, like there is an inevitability to like the idea that, you're going to have pressure to create things or to control success or control like, okay, well, if I catalog all these ideas and I'm super organized and I go through them and I like have this like process, and I think that might work for some people, but for me, I'm already so sort of like analytical and judgy in certain ways and self-critical that and I think this is true for a lot of people. The best thing that I can do is just focus on finding ways to take the pressure off and like remove the expectation piece so that I can just make a lot of stuff first and then let that like analytical instinct in later on and not try to control the process,
Exactly. And I love that. I love that perspective too of make the thing and then assess the thing and then do it again. Like separating the critic, but not abolishing the critic, like still making them important, but not necessarily completely in the moment.
I think that's almost impossible to do. Like certainly there are people where their balance is going to be a little different. Like I know certain people are irrationally overconfident, which I almost wish that I had that. You know what I mean? Like this sort of like, I don't know, DJ Khaled vibe where you're just like, dude, you are just insanely confident for no fucking reason, but it totally works for you. Which is amazing. Like, I wish I had more of that sometimes. But like those people certainly are maybe more at danger of having to remember to judge themselves. But like, honestly, I'd rather err on that side of things of overconfidence than I would like being crippled by fear of failure or something like that. Yes.
On this point, I'm curious what you would do in a session like this, because I've been in a few of these where the ideas are flowing, the song's coming along, but there's a writer in the room that doesn't really believe in editing. They believe like first pass, those are the lyrics, everything's in stone. And that's hard for me to work with, because then I like to get stuff done and then let's like go back and tweak some things and reassess. Maybe we'll sing it and realize like these syllables don't hit. But some other writers will be like, no, as we're going, we are editing and we are getting each line perfect. Have you been in that situation? How would you navigate that?
I mean, I guess it really like isn't something that if you don't have if it's a session you're already in, you don't have control over the room, and like these are things that I think you try to ideally pay attention to for future sessions where like if certain writers work well with other writers that have similar tendencies and complement each other well, then of course you try to put those people together. And but if you can't in that situation, I think the best thing to do is just like, I don't know. I'm a believer that like I try to be as hands off as possible until as late as possible, just to see like how things can go like naturally without me having to sort of like direct the flow of the session. So if I think typically the faster moving person usually wins, and that's fine. I'm cool with that. And then I think maybe if you're noticing the other person wants to go back and edit, then maybe I give them a little bit of support later on and say, hey, what do you guys think about this lyric, or does anyone have any thoughts? Like sort of make it just an open conversation so that person has their time to sort of get in there too, and sort of, and then, we'll judge the ideas together, because at the end of the day, you want the best possible product. Everybody's in it for the same thing, and you're supposed to fight over stuff. Like if it's a good song and it's a good collaboration, there should be some passion there. Like the worst thing that can happen is for people to come in and just kind of not care. Right. That's a waste of a day. You know what I mean? Like you should care. You should want it to be the best that it possibly can be that day, and also try to have some fun. You know what I mean? Like, it's still got to be fun. I think 90% of the time it's a pleasant process writing the good ones, Yeah.
I get it. Totally get it. What's the biggest session you ever done? Because I know I
Like in terms of number of people?
yeah, number of people.
Ooh, that's a good question. I mean, like, so some of these like writing camp sessions, like there's the sort of like the famous Warner Chapel, who I'm published by right now. They do like this Vegas camp every year with like, I don't know, there's 100 people there at a time.
What?
Not not in one studio, but like they're staying. We stay at like a hotel in Vegas, and they send everybody out to sessions. And I've definitely been in sessions with like 7 or 8 people,
awesome.
like collaborating at one time.
Yeah.
And then other people in the room like kind of hanging out. Like especially like I think in like a camp setting like that, like a hip hop session, you'll have like 3 producers, couple of writers and artists, you know what I mean? Maybe 2 artists. And those can be super fun because it's just, if everyone's plugged in, you're just jamming. I mean, like, I'm like making a guitar lick over here and then passing it over to this guy who's fucking it up a little bit. And then somebody else is like taking that and doing some drums. And then like all of a sudden we have a beat in 7 minutes that someone's writing on, and we're like off to the next beat. And that's like, that can be a really fun way to work for sure.
That sounds super fun.
I don't think sitting around writing like a piano song with 8 people is probably going to be that good, but it's probably happened too. I don't know.
Yeah, no, and actually that's probably a question that that some listeners would be having, because they'll see, they'll open up the credits and see a bunch of names. Maybe could you explain kind of like how that works? So like you look at I don't know, like Beyoncé.
Sure. Or yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of artists that have different processes for how this all works. It can be, you're in just different situations all the time. At least for me, like sometimes there'll be an artist in the room in the session, and it'll be myself, that artist, a couple of co-writers. So it'll start off with maybe 3, even in a situation where you have the artist in the room, and then, we'll finish and I'll say, you know what, I have a friend who I'd love to collaborate on the production with here. He'd be perfect for this sort of production. So I pull him in, and then there's an extra name on the list there as a writer because he's helped me with the track. And then, that's one way that happens. But I think for someone like Beyonce, typically it's going to probably go through the hands of a few different producers. So what'll happen oftentimes is, at least my experience in having a record with Beyonce, was I wrote that song with Diana Gordon and Kevin Cossum in Miami. It was just the 3 of us. Cool. And we wrote it on guitar. It was like almost like a country song.
Awesome. Yeah, totally. I know the song. Yeah.
And so that sat on, I think we definitely had her in mind when we wrote it, but it was for an album prior. Like it was 2 years before. And it sat on
this. You weren't even thinking like Lemonade.
Not at all. I didn't know. I mean, not at all. We had no idea that was even being made. I mean,
awesome.
But anyway, so Diana Gordon had it on her laptop for she was like, that's one of my favorite songs, but we have no fucking idea what to do with it. And so 2 years later, I get a text message from her, and she's like, yo, can you send me the chords and some other stuff from basically write out the form and all that stuff for Daddy Lessons? And I said, yeah, sure. So I just sent it to her, and then I got a call maybe 3 months later, and they were like, so we can't really tell you if we're using the song or not, but Beyonce is gonna buy the song anyways, and so you're gonna do a producer deal, whatever, and it may or may not be on this next thing that's coming out sometime in the near future. So then Lemonade dropped, and it was on there, and the production was way beefed up. They kept some of my guitar stuff, but I don't even know if it's me playing it. I think it got replayed even, and they hooked me up with a producer credit because they kept a lot of the parts.
Got it. Cool.
But basically her band replayed the song. So that one, obviously she went in and edited a bunch. She rewrote a bunch of lyrics and rewrote the whole bridge. And then obviously some other people that she works with ended up touching the production. So that probably added some names on there too. I think that's a typical process. Is that's good. Right. Short answer is you get a song to an artist, they have a whole team that they like to make it their style and sort of help them, rewrite some stuff or whatever to make it more personal. And then that's how you end up with essentially 2 writing sessions worth of people on credits.
That makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. And that also makes sense why, you know, a song like that feels very personal and folk and country and like, you know, it feels like a writing session song that you do in Nashville or in Miami or whatever, like around an acoustic guitar, around a folk instrument. Yeah,
I mean, that definitely was not the brief that we had that day.
Yeah,
it was just, again, that might have been like, I think a second or third song thing. Like Kevin called me and he was just like, yo, bring a guitar. We want to do something different than we've been doing all day. I said, all right, cool.
Yeah.
But, yeah, that was a crazy one. And I guess like when Diana had played it for Beyonce, she was just like, damn, like I really can relate to that. Like I need to have that song. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
yes, totally.
It's crazy how music does that. Like, you know, so many shared experiences through people who, you know, seemingly would be so different. You know what I mean?
Yes.
That's obviously a very broad, simple statement, but I think it's true.
But it's profound at the same time. It's like, you know, that's a reason why we have hits and stuff. Is it taps into like a cultural consciousness.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
Not that I have hits. I meant like the royal.
No, I mean, well, yeah, sure. No, but I mean, you know, any music. It doesn't matter if it's 10 people or 100 people or a billion people. Like, you know, I think that's what's cool about right now in music is for artists. I think if you can find, you know, your little small group of like passionate fans that really love you, you can make a career out of this. It's not either like you're Beyonce or you're nothing. You know what I mean? Like there is like this, at least for artists, like a middle class that sort of exists now that I think hasn't existed for a long time.
Totally. And I like that there are more fans that are adapting that too. That's part of the reason why I wanted to do this podcast, so that the people that want to like get heavier into the process understand the nuts and bolts. Not necessarily even if they want to do it, just to like get the behind the scenes, like the DVDs and stuff. I mean, you're like, I know the Lord of the Rings better now because I watched the extended.
Yeah, like I can't drive an F1 car and I never will, but I still like watching Drive to Survive, you know?
Right, exactly.
That's pretty cool.
And it makes you appreciate the races more.
Totally.
Like now I understand the personalities and the teams and what all goes into this, and changes it.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. And I think, you know, I'm not sure that I would wish upon any normal person like learning how to listen to music as critically as maybe you or I do.
No,
like
I
just
don't
like breaking all the parts down and everything.
Yeah, no.
You know, and not having trouble enjoying things as like a full, just like wonderment type experience. But like 10% of that is nice, I think, to have.
Exactly.
You know, a little bit more context.
I kind of had an existential crisis for a little while, like when my ears changed to like music school ears.
Yeah,
I was like, I don't like music as much anymore because like I hear all the parts and how they all interlocked, and I'm thinking all the time. I've gotten to the other end of that, but there were a couple years in there that were scary.
I mean, I think they tell you like you learn these rules and then you're supposed to forget them. You know what I mean? Like I think that's something people say. Mm-hmm. Like it took me a long time to forget all the rules. I still feel like I know too many of them. I don't want them, you know?
Totally. Actually, I want to talk to you, I guess, about my favorite songwriting rule.
Sure.
Songwriting form.
Okay.
I've been noticing some really interesting trends in songwriting form.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious about like how you approach a tune, and obviously this can change midstream. I do this all the time. Where like, oh, I'm going to move the bridge over here instead, or I'm going to take away this first pre-chorus, but leave in a second pre-chorus. But like the pacing of the song and like going to the different sections. Curious like how your thought process of that has maybe evolved. Like I know that like Max Martin's got like his thing. He's got like a certain way that he wants to like pace out a tune. But I'm just curious, like, do you think about form, or do you just kind of like let it flow, or how do you interact with like that specific technique based bit of songwriting?
Well, I mean, again, I think it's a thing where, I used to worry about it a lot more than I do now. Like, you know, I think when it's important to learn like the shit that's worked forever in like in your medium. Like, I always tell people like, you know, if you want the song to be for a specific medium, like if you want it to be pop music, if you want it to be, then don't make it 8 minutes long and don't make like the chorus come in at 4 minutes. You know what I mean? Like, but if you want to just make a piece of art, then that's awesome. Do that. Like Radiohead has songs that are crazy like that. They're amazing. But like, I'm not sure that they work today on like pop whatever radio, but who cares? Like, it just depends on what you're trying to accomplish. So I think, you know, if you're trying to make a pop song, there's certain things that, you know, work or are working better now than they were before. and you try to pay attention to like the trends, and so to make sure that whatever you're making sort of can fit loosely in this mold of stuff, right? So I do pay attention to that, but there's no like rules to it, I don't think. No. It's not like
Totally.
maybe like 6 years ago or 10 years ago, you'd be like, oh, if your chorus hasn't come in by 38 seconds and, you're not cutting the second half of your second pre-chorus, then this isn't a correct pop song. But I don't think that really applies anymore.
I agree. I mean, it's also interesting to look at the ways that song form changed from like, Beatles, Beach Boys era, like traditional, more AABA kind of song form, like Yesterday.
Yeah.
Like a good example of kind of a weirder form of that to, what it is today with like, I Kissed a Girl or something like that on kind of the other end.
I think that almost has run its course in some ways too. Like
cool.
even like modern, like pop songs, like of course they have like formats, but I don't think it's quite as like syntax oriented.
I agree.
I actually think that the biggest songs now are the ones that tend to or the ones that people feel like are classic, tend to sort of step outside the box and refer to periods like that Beatles, Beach Boys period almost like directly, you know what I mean? And so it feels like a renewed sort of thing because everything is cyclical, trends come and go, people get tired of 128 to 135 dance music after a while, and then they want to hear something slower, and then a couple years later they want to party again. So
exactly.
I mean, it's sort of like, and trying to like fit into that too much, I think you're chasing your own tail. I think you just make what you make, and you just try to be like loosely aware of what works and doesn't work.
Yeah. No, it's a great point. And I agree with you in terms of the overly syntactical. Like, I think artists like Remy Wolf is a good example of somebody that kind of just like has hooks.
She's so sick.
So sick.
Yeah.
It's refreshing. I don't know. It's nice to like not have to like think as like squarely like this is the chorus. It's just like here's another hook. And here's an even better hook.
Yeah, just
and then like here's one more.
Just like write cool shit, right?
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Just like do cool stuff and make it sound good.
Yeah,
that's the job.
That's the job.
Gig.
There's your golden nugget, everybody. One of the things that I'm falling too prey to right now, but if I don't have a good enough second verse idea, I just don't.
You just don't do the second. You don't write it.
Don't do the second verse. Yeah, like I do either like a new section or variation on the second verse, turn it into an instrumental. But I've just like I can't bring myself to write a crappy second verse anymore. I just can't. It has to be good.
Yeah. Well, what's the point? Yeah. I mean, to be fair, like if you're not absolutely thrilled with something by the end of the first chorus, you probably don't need to write the second verse at all. You just write something new.
Totally.
You know what I mean?
But sometimes it just feels like, okay, I said it. What else am I going to say? It's like, you could do the Nashville thing and change perspective or change time period or whatever. It's like, or you just don't do it, do a different hook.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm bringing my chaos into this conversation.
No, I like it. Chaotic energy is good.
Talking Nashville, the Hunter Hayes song that you just worked on, Sober.
Yes.
I'm curious how that goes. Country artist. How was that process? Were you pitching the tune? Was that through Warren Chappell? Like how did that come about?
Let me think about that. I think that was something that came through through Warner.
Cool.
Hunter had just, I think, moved or was in the process of like moving either full-time or part-time to LA and was looking for some like new people to collaborate with that had a little bit different perspective. I think he wanted to move a little bit away from like just being seen strictly as like a Nashville country guy.
Oh, for sure.
And so we wrote that one. I think we did maybe 4 or 5 days spread out over a couple of months with Hunter. It was myself, my friend Aaron Zuckerman, who I collaborate and co-produce with quite a bit, and Rolo Spreckley, who's an amazing artist and writer, signed to Atlantic or APG. And so it was the three of us and Hunter, and we just one of the songs that we wrote was that one, and then I think it went through a few different iterations of production. Some I think was more like programmed sounding. Some of it, the latest version is almost all Hunter playing. So he really took that to the finish line production wise. And so, yeah, it was a fun process to do something a little bit more live sounding and a little bit more like just like leave it in the hands of the artist to sort of do his thing to finish, which was cool.
That is cool. And it's cool to be, I don't know, part of that kind of crossroads of that artist's career where they're saying like, I want to evolve in this way. And then like you can kind of help them, you know, explore different parts of their sound, different parts of their personality. Yeah,
I mean, he's such a nice guy and like was so easy to collaborate with, and like it's so generous and open, like with us just from the beginning, which is so nice. And I think one of the things that makes any artist really great to work with is just he has a very specific perspective, and he really knows what he's trying to accomplish, or at least the feeling that he's trying to achieve. And so when you have some sort of North Star in that way, I think as an artist, it's really powerful, because then the people around you can really figure out how to help you and try to execute that vision or explore it with you, rather than, you know, sometimes that's not so clear. And so it was really nice for him. He came in super prepared. It was great.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's the number one thing that an artist needs is like vision.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, and it's more rare than I think than I think a lot of people would guess. Like a true like kind of big picture kind of vision for sure.
And sometimes it exhausts. Sometimes people have vision for the first like record or two, and then beyond that, they're like, I don't know where to evolve yet.
I mean, I think that's natural, right?
It is, of course, it is. That's when you run or take a long bike ride.
Yeah, man. I mean, I've never been an artist, so I just find it so impressive, like just being able to negotiate all of these things and have it be so personal and personal, and like tied to your, you know, your identity and all of that. I mean, it's such a tough thing to do. I have a lot of respect for artists.
Totally. And sometimes that's why you know, put on a stupid name like Scoobert Doobert, and then it makes it a little easier.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Then you can have some room to have fun, you know?
Right. And then I can write songs about shrimp burritos and nobody bats an eye.
There you go. Shrimp burrito sounds great.
They're pretty good, man. A lot of people that I added that was one of my like stupid shower songs.
Nice.
I was like, I'm gonna track this one. It was my birthday. I'm like, I'm just gonna spend my morning recording this song. That's really dumb.
Getting shrimp burritos.
3-part harmony.
Let's go.
Burrito. Yeah, it was great.
Let's go.
But yeah, a lot of people reacted to that, and they're like, "Ew, shrimp burrito." I'm like, don't hate it. It's delicious.
What's wrong with the shrimp burrito? Explain that one to me.
I just think they like think of like, you know, burrito chicken or beef or something like that.
Okay.
I don't think that these are necessarily SoCal or Miami natives that are used to different things.
I think people just need to expand their burrito horizons. You know, It's a beautiful burrito world out there. There's a veritable cornucopia of burrito options. Anyway,
I want to ask you just one last kind of thing. It might span out for a bit.
Yeah, because I can talk to a snake for an hour.
Dude, this is great. So. No, this is rad. We've been talking like folk instrument writing primarily so far. Let's talk top line writing, beat writing.
Okay.
So I'm certain that you've done this in a few different ways, but writing on a beat that somebody like provided versus, you know, making a beat and then writing on it. How do you usually split up those times? Are you thinking of hooks as you're like playing the guitar part? How do you navigate like the differences between, you know, folk based writing and you know, hip hop or beat based writing?
I mean, I think it's all like more of a hybrid now, even like
cool.
I mean, I think when I first started out, like I was doing a lot more work in like hip hop and even like just hip hop style, like traditionally would be like, we make a beat, writers write on the beat, and there's no overlap. Right. And, but like, you know, even then I think a lot of times like we weren't like bringing in fully finished beats. Like you go into the session with like maybe like a couple of loops or like instrumental ideas, and then like whatever one starts sparking, like even in hip hop, I think it's super important to sort of hear the cadence of someone like writing a hook or writing like a, And so that way you can sort of like be making it as you're hearing what's going on in the room, and it's like you're making the beat, they're writing. And that happens for pop too. I feel like, you know, you can start with a guitar part or like a drum loop or something, and then like you want to build it around what's going on, because I think like doing them together gives you the ability to like sort of follow a melody here, or like, oh, this is going to need a chord change based on where they're going or whatever it might be. There's more flexibility, but
I like that.
Certainly have also like, you know, it can be fun to like, I don't do a lot of it because typically I'm like doing some more of the production, but it can be fun to just like flip through a folder of beats and just whip hooks on everything. You know what I mean? Like, why not, you know?
I know. That's one of the reasons why I like working with EDM guys. Sometimes, because they'll just send me something like, this is done, put a vocal on it. It's like, you got like this much space that you can fill, and it's like kind of like, it's kind of fun because it's like, it's almost like writing to a brief or something. Because it's kind of like you gotta hit this range, you gotta kind of be in this space, otherwise it's not gonna work. I
mean, I think the fun part about writing to finish tracks is the energy is already there for you. You know what I mean? Totally. The other thing where it can be kind of like tricky is sometimes it's tougher to tell if it's a good song or not.
I know.
Because like if the production is fun and like, you know, you're just sort of like, sometimes it automatically sounds too good like at the beginning, and then like 2 days later you're like, oh shit, those lyrics are fucking terrible, and like this melody's not that good, and that beat was just kind of sick, you know? So you got to be careful with that, but it can be really fun.
Have you written multiple songs on the same beat, like just wiped it, written again?
No, never. I mean, like I don't think so, at least. It's funny, like I think about recycling stuff sometimes. Damn, that was a cool beat. Like I should pull like at least part of that back out. But I like never do it for some reason. I definitely will pull like sounds and cool parts out of productions. Like if I finish a production, it's like I made a cool snare that I like, you know, I'll put that in my little sample library and keep creating like a, you know, bin of stuff that I've made over the years. But never like full songs for whatever reason, or full beats.
Yeah, it's actually, I've done it a few times. It's super hard.
Because
it's like you already breathed like life into this song, and you're going to take it back out and put in a new soul.
I mean, we've definitely done intense rewrites on stuff where it's like totally new verse melody, totally new lyrics. And those are tough, man. They can be tough, but sometimes it's worth doing. If you have a really strong piece, like it's worth going hard to get the other pieces up to snuff.
I agree. Yeah, definitely. Especially a verse that's just not quite hitting. If that was like, you know, a throwaway end of session, you know, like, oh, we just want to get something in there, and then you come back and you're like, oof, but everything else is great, and that's the anchor around its neck. You gotta get back in there.
Totally. Fight for the awesome pieces. I mean, they're like we said earlier, they come rarely, so you know, use them.
Yes, that's great. Well, this is an awesome conversation. Is there any other, like, I don't know, personal things about music or life and creativity that you'd love to kind of leave the listeners with?
I don't know. I mean, that's damn. I feel like there's like a lot of pressure on that question.
Yeah, I know. Right?
No. It's been awesome talking to you, man, and good to meet you.
Totally.
Like this was long overdue, and thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. Thank you, everybody. How can they find your stuff? I'll throw links in the bio and stuff.
Yeah, links in the bio. I've got.
You got it.
They'll be there.
You got it. Sounds good. And likewise, my stuff, Scoobert.pizza is my website, and I'll drop my links in there as well. So thank you so much, Alex, and wish you all the best. Looking forward to hearing more and more songs.
Thanks, man. Take care.
Thanks, dude. Take it easy.